It's War Dragon time! RPW here with another video to the Beginner's Guide to War Dragon series. Now today's video I would like to talk about leadership. How to lead your team. This is something that I think some leaders kind of mess up on because they fail to realize leadership is different than being the boss. So what is being a leader in this team all about? Well, the number one thing would be to be the motivator of your team. You are going to be the person that cheers your team on and pushes them to succeed even further. That does not mean threaten, fight, etc. with the rest of your teammates, but to lead them and motivate them to succeed. Now, there's always those players that do not budge, no matter how much you motivate, or even if you threaten to remove them from the team for not doing wars or participating in events, they are dead weight to your team. So the best thing to do is cut your losses with them. There's nothing like dead weight to diminish the motivation of your more active players and cause them to even leave. Now, another thing that seems to be an issue within leadership, according to some of the complaints I've heard, is the lack of communication. Now, one way to communicate with your entire team is to send out a weekly newsletter. This is something that I do for my team every week, and I do that every Tuesday between the events so that they know what's coming, what's happened, and then this is also a great place to shout out to new members and kind of give any other information you may have, like your line ID and so forth. So this is a great way to communicate with everyone. Now, if you don't know how to do a mass message, let me show you. You go into your profile where you find your avatar. On the top, you're going to see an I button. If you click this, it's going to open up your team's information. And at the very bottom, you're going to have the option to write your team a message, which is going to bring up your team's name. Now, when I send out my weekly newsletters, I make sure I put in the subject that it is a weekly newsletter. And I always remember to put do not reply in this because this way they know that it is a mass message. And then of course I further explain this in the actual message itself. Another way is to go over to your messages, click create a new message, and here you're going to write your team's name. This is going to create a message for your entire team en masse. And again, in your subject, I would always add do not reply because it is a mass message. Now, I personally keep my stuff in my notes. If you go into my notes here, for example, I've got my weekly newsletter, which I edit every Monday or Tuesday, and then I copy and simply paste it into the messenger. Really speeds everything up. So another thing you can do is have a place for everybody to go outside of the game for information. I personally use quite a few things, but Facebook and Line tend to be the top two. There's also things like Skype. So this is something you guys could really utilize to communicate to your team members. Now, the really great thing about Line is it's more like a messenger app. So as long as they have their notifications on, you can truly use this to your advantage in wars and so forth. Let me kind of take you through my Line. Now, I have two chat rooms for my team. I've got my Guardian chat room, which is a place for everybody to just chit chat and fill it up with a bunch of messages that aren't always that important. Now, I also have the news board room. Now, this is more for official posts. I generally explain to my team that this is for officers and leaders to kind of share information like newsletters, videos, let them know that there's a war coming up, and to kind of let them know what events are coming in. This way it doesn't get lost in the chat room because the regular chat room can be quite busy. Then, of course, you can always personally message anyone on your team through here and have a nice private chat. See all my old videos. I used to only post in Line, and then I expanded to all of you. Now, I personally prefer Facebook as my communication post, but I understand that a lot of people don't have Facebook, and some people are not keen on having their personal information out there to other players. So I do keep both updated. However, the reason I like Facebook better is because even if you join after something has been posted, you can go back and see the information. Now, sometimes I have to edit this, but my team knows these are only predictions, and I will add actual predictions into the event calendar for them to see. This way they can prepare for possible future feedings and breedings. So it's a great motivator for your team members, honestly. There are different styles of leadership out there within War Dragons, and some have to be a little more stern than others depending on the league that you're in. If you're looking to lead a team that's a little more laid back, then I would stick with a platinum level, gold level team. If you want something very laid back, you may want to drop even further down. But if you're hardcore War Dragons and you're willing to really push your team, then you may want a diamond or sapphire team. So pick the people that will fit your leadership style. Now, when it comes to your core team, or what some people call your loyal players, this is something that in the very beginning of starting a team or leading a team, you're going to find smaller amounts. But as your team grows, you're going to find that that core grows with it. These are going to be the players that no matter whether you fall or you grow, they're going to be there. They may need to take time off, of course, but I'm talking these are the people that will always stand with you or return if they do take time off. So make sure that you notice who your core team members are and make them super important in your motivation and leadership. These are also great officers within your team, so just keep that in mind when choosing officers. When it comes to choosing officers, I think this would probably be the most stressful, difficult job as a leader, at least for me, maybe not for others. And it's not so much choosing those you trust, that's the easy part. But when you have 20 members that you truly trust that deserve an officer role and there's only 5 openings, this can be a challenge. So maybe find out who on your team finds this as an importance and who doesn't. And that way you can kind of say, okay, well, these 5 people are the only ones that find it important and I trust them, so I'm going to make them my officers. Now, another thing you can do is not have hardly any officers. You can have, let's say, 2 officers you trust. You don't have to fill them all. Now, when it comes to officers, I want to also point out that if you ever do a merge, likely you are going to be asked to give up an officer position to either the leader or somebody that's bringing that team into yours. We'll go over merging teams a little bit more in another video, but I do want to point out that you've got to be very careful when you do this, especially if you're giving up an officer position, because you don't know what that team style is. So just be very wary of that and keep an eye out for my merging teams video coming in the future. Now, what is the officer's role? Well, that depends on what you make their roles out to be. I think that every officer should know what they can do for your team. And as you get to know them, you will find what their skills are, what they bring to the team. So you can have an officer that's solely for wars, the person that, gets out and backs people, that pushes waves, etc. Then you can have an officer that is your recruiting officer. This is going to be someone who posts on social media and actively recruits for your team. And then you also have the idea of an officer who is maybe your human resources officer, somebody that sends out messages to the team for you. And these are just a few examples. So you can really create officers' roles. Another great one is an events officer. You can break this down where one is for PvP events and maybe another one is for the other events. So make sure you give your officers a role so they know what you're expecting from them. Are you a leader or are you a king? Now, in some instances, it's somewhat the same. You're going to have the same responsibility on your head as a king, but you can't rule your team. These people are not being paid by you. This is their game just as much as it is yours. So whenever it comes to leading your team, try not to be a tyrant. They're not going to be willing to continue to follow you if you are constantly ruling everyone. That does not mean that people should get by with freeloading or bullying others on your team, however. So know when to cut your losses. Now, I just kind of want to go over with you really quickly my thoughts as a leader before I let you go. And I'm going to tell you that it can be very stressful, but at the same time, it can be extremely rewarding. To me, it's a lot like being a parent. Sometimes your kids can be disappointing, sometimes it can be stressful, but in the end, the things that they bring you can be very rewarding. So remember that when you're dealing with anyone that's difficult. I think another thing that you should really think about is sometimes you're going to have to realize that as a leader, you're going to be leading lots of different people. and not just within our own community, but from across the world. So there's going to be things like language barriers. There's going to be things like you're going to find that some of your team members are actually children. And then there's going to be times that you're going to find that some people are, for example, in the military and they have to take time off. So be mindful of that and really get to know who your members are. I think for me, that is the most important part as a leader, is knowing who your players are and how you can best succeed with them. So I hope today's video was something that really gave some great ideas to everyone and helped you understand the importance of being a leader. Now, before I wrap this video up, I do have a future video coming where we will go more in depth on the different tools within the game that you have as a leader. It will be coming after I do an officers video, so make sure you check back on that. I kind of want to wrap the two together because they're very similar. But before you go, make sure you comment in the video below any kind of tips or something that you want to share with the community as to what your experiences are, whether it be something negative or positive or something you may have learned that you'd like to share with others that are thinking about being a leader of their own team. All right, guys, make sure you give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you hit the little bell, you can get notifications every time a new video is posted. Happy hunting!